Rescue 8, Truck 6, Truck 3, Battalion 3, and the on-call inspector. 2303 West 46th Street, number 208.
On this episode of Sioux Falls Fire, we have a training exercise out by the city landfill. We also are going to learn a little bit more about firefighters and how they deal with cold weather. We're also going to learn about this engine out here at Station 6.
All right, we're out here today. We had an opportunity that comes up only once in a great while for us to actually do a controlled burn on a structure and use it for training. We don't usually get to do these because typically when we do training, get a structure for training, we're within city limits. So this time we're outside city limits, so we're out by the landfill on city property, so taking advantage of this opportunity. And I'm here with firefighter Chris Lohan. And Chris, talk to me a little bit about what all went on here today with this control burn. What did you guys learn with it?
So today we were learning flow paths. We were learning about transitional attacks, using different equipment, how it affects the fire. If you open a window or you open a door, how it affects how the fire grows and everything else. Also learning just different types of smoke coming out. Basement fires, looking for things on the outside of the structure as you're rolling up on a structure to see what's going on and what to look for.
What kind of things would you look for in that respect?
So a basement fire, you're not going to see a whole lot of smoke because it's bottled up in the basement. So you're looking for light wispy smoke, and then if you don't find anything on the main floor on the Division 1, then you're looking down the basement to see if you see any fire or smoke.
And any kind of, along sill plates, anything like that, you might see a little bit of smoke coming out, just to give you a little clue that it's in the basement, right?
That's correct, yep.
Okay, so we started off in the basement, lit that up, worked through that, got to see how the heat rises up through the stairwell area. We did all of this on the exterior of the building. It was, we didn't do any interior attack, any interior firefighting whatsoever. It was all outside, exterior. And from there we went to an upstairs bedroom fire. What'd you see on that?
So the bedroom fire, we closed the door on another bedroom and we were watching through the window to see if there was any extension into that room. And it was amazing to see how when the door is closed, you don't have any extension into there as long as the fire is very limited to that other bedroom.
So it was a good thing, good way to see how, fire prevention has been talking lately about close the bedroom door when you go to bed to make sure, it's one of those extra barriers for fire to come into a bedroom if it's during the night or something. So this really showed that, right?
Yeah, it was a good training thing for us to see and for us to learn from and then tell other people about.
Okay. And then we moved around to, in the living room area, had fire set in there, kind of stood back, watched that. What kind of things did you see and learn from that?
So we were watching as the smoke would grow out we would control the flow path to one side of the building or the other, and seeing how it would grow, and then watching the inlet on the one side, seeing that air flow going into there, feeding the fire. Yep.
Feeding it sucks the air, and you can really see how it pulls it and draws it in, feeds the fire, and then on the exhaust end, the smoke, the force that it has coming out.
And then watching the window break at a certain temperature, it was really cool to see.
Okay. So I know that you've done, numerous training fires live fire training fires out at Training Center. How did this compare?
This one we actually got to watch build up, watch it through the different phases. We had lots of windows. It was a large enough structure. You can watch through the incipient phase to the growth phase to the fully enveloped phase, and it was great to see that in the training center. You don't get to see all those different stages necessarily because you're on outside of a structure. You go in, you put out the fire, and it's done. So this was great to see every single stage, and then also be able to put out some of the fire, but then watch it through the decay stage and everything else. It was great. It was really good learning opportunity.
Good. Yeah. All right, well, thank you very much. I'll let you get back to work, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right, thank you.
Now I'm with Captain Todd Lowe. He's our Chief Training Officer out at the Training Center for us. And Todd, we don't get these opportunities very often to do a controlled burn like this. What are some of the things that you're looking for to be able to train with something like this?
Well, these opportunities are very rare for us, and as a training staff, one of the things we often struggle with is having the availability of watching a fire progress through all of its stages, and there's so much learning that can go in with watching that continual development without putting the fire out. And just by the location of where this was at, it was conducive for us to be able to burn and out of the city limits. And as a training officer, we look for these opportunities, and too often we often interrupt them as a course of our what we're supposed to be doing, which is put the fire out. And so as we watch a fire go through its stages, and we set 5 different fires here, we set them all from an outside location, and we demonstrated transitional attacks from the exterior. We were able to demonstrate the effects of specific nozzles or some of our specialty nozzles, which we very rarely use and use for below grade fires. And at the same time, most of our learning for flow paths and door control comes through videos and maybe post-incident analysis.
Yeah, so some of the younger firefighters, the newer firefighters, this is some of their really best experience with this type of fire training, because if you haven't been on a volunteer department, or they're just full-time with us, they don't get to do a controlled burn like this, do they?
No, we don't have the opportunity to do control burns. And the nice thing about these environments is that you can experiment with techniques from a safe location, and at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, then you learn that it doesn't work. If it does work, it helps add to your ability to select the right tactic should you ever encounter the same situation.
All right, well, thank you very much, Todd.
Yep.
Appreciate your taking these firefighters and teaching them a lot of good information. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So right now we're in the dead of winter here. It's cold, it's windy, blowing, and everything in the Midwest, and it's a difficult time of year for firefighters to deal with. And so I'm here with firefighter Mitch Evertsey, and I'm going to kind of talk to him a little bit about some of the things that firefighters have to think about and do, and various things like that in the dead of winter. So welcome, Mitch. At this time of year, some of the stuff you think about with the cold weather and ice and different things like that, what do you have to think about when you're on the scene of a fire?
Well, probably the most obvious one is our hoses can freeze. Mm-hmm. So we like to keep the nozzles cracked open if they're not in use. That way they don't freeze up.
Explain that a little more as far as the hoses freeze. Most people think that you're going to have just running water constantly. What's the chance? How's it going to freeze? What goes on to make it freeze at that point in time?
Well, the moving water will prevent it from freezing. Mm-hmm. So if the nozzle's completely closed for too long, the static water can freeze the hose.
And with keeping the hoses cracked open so that you have the running water, give me a little analogy of how that compares to, say, like a lake or a stream.
Sure, if you think about a creek or a river, it doesn't tend to freeze as quick in the winter because the water is moving, whereas a lake is still water and it tends to freeze quicker.
Okay, so the lake, it'll freeze, not movement. Creek, movement, it's not going to freeze.
Correct.
Okay, so what are some of the other things? Okay, with the moving water, that's additional ice, right?
Correct.
What do you have to think about there?
Obviously, a slip hazard. We do carry traction spikes in all of our boots, but we do have to be careful about creating too much ice around the fire truck and hauling hoses and things like that over the ice.
Okay, and talking about ice and snow, I can imagine if you're trying to set a ladder on the side of a building or something, that can play havoc a little ice and snow there, right?
If the snow is deep enough or if it's too icy, it can be difficult to have a sturdy footing or to even carry a ladder through a yard with a couple feet of snow in it. Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest things that we always try to get the public to think about and do is clearing the snow around their fire hydrants. What are some of the reasons why? Why do we preach that so much?
We like to keep at least 3 feet to start off with instead of just in front, the whole perimeter. That way, when we're hooking up our hydrant, we have room to turn the hydrant wrench, and we have room for the hose to be coming off the hydrant.
Because it's a large diameter hose. It's a 5-inch hose, so you need to have a lot of room to be able to come off the hydrant, make the turn that it needs to make if you're going left or right or whatever, and just keeping it clear is very helpful, right?
Correct. It saves a lot of time.
Clearing fire hydrants, there's a lot of areas where there might be a fire hydrant in front of an elderly person's home or something like that that they just can't get out and clean. So what would you suggest for the community, for the neighbors? What's one thing that they can do to help out?
Well, I would say being a good neighbor. You know, the fire hydrant covers, you know, a block or two at a time. So scooping out your neighbor's fire hydrant, you know, could benefit you as well. Most people scoop out the driveways and things like that, but they just overlook the fire hydrant.
Yep. So like you said, it encompasses a larger area than just the one house it's in front of. So be a good neighbor, help each other out, and clear the hydrant. Okay. And okay, so with it being really bitterly cold, do you have to wear any different type of gear? Is there anything else that you do to stay a little warmer?
Well, our gear is about the same, I would say, but there are times where the regulators can freeze on our mask if it gets too cold.
Okay, and explain that a little more with your mask. What are you talking about?
Well, the vapor that comes off of our breath gets trapped inside the mask, and then that can freeze up and cause it to stick.
Okay, and then your mask stops.
Correct.
And you can't get the air that you need from the SCBA, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so there's a lot of little things that firefighters have to think about during the winter months, especially when they're fighting a fire, but also when you're going on EMS calls and different things like that. There's just a lot of different things, correct?
Correct.
All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate the time, and we'll let you get back to your business.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Ryan Cox. I'm out at Station 6 today on the corner of 41st and Marion. Today we're going to learn a little bit about Engine 21 here with Joe Funky. If you want to tell us a little bit about this engine and what are the things that we have on it.
Of course, yeah. This is a Type 3 engine. What we call Type 3 is more of a wildland setting. This engine runs EMS calls primarily at this station, and it goes on fires, vehicle fires, and EMS runs also at this station. It was deployed to the Legion Lake fire out in the hills, and I think one other fire out in Colorado last year. It has as you can see, it's a little higher off the ground, which makes it better for mountain terrain, and that's why we call it a wildland truck. It has a 500-gallon capacity tank, and it has all the capabilities for pre-connects for fighting fire that we can use. As we go around here, we got our basic just tools. It's a giant toolbox, we like to say. We have all sorts of adapters, toolbox, and then a set of other stuff.
A lot of these adapters, what are these used for?
So this is an inductor for foam. So we also have water, but we also have foam, which is used for all types of fire, for gas fires, or we can also use it for fuel spill fires, and also kind of smothering the fires. It gives a different kind of type of attack. And then these are all adapters we can use for just all the different types of scenarios.
So the tools in this one compared to our other regular engines and trucks, is there a lot of difference, or?
They're pretty much similar to most engines. This is an engine. There's a lot of other stations with engines. We also have trucks, and they might have some different tools that might be different for ventilation purposes and stuff like that. But this is kind of primarily just the basics of what we need at a fire ground.
Okay. Plus some other extra things that we
Plus
might need.
Some extra stuff that,
like for wildland firefighting.
Wildland firefighting and water rescue as well. We also have some high-rise packs. These are hose bundles. We can, if we don't have enough hose from pulling off, we can put this on our shoulder and carry it up to the fire floor. It gives us 150 feet, this hose, and then we have a 2.5, a bigger hose bundle back there too we can also utilize. Some more nozzles we can hook up to and utilize, and then we also have tool bag and drills and a couple other things that for foaming. We have some nozzles for the foam, so that kind of aerates the foam to get it more viscous.
How about this back
And
compartment
this
here?
back part here is, so as you see, we have our gear back here, and it's a new concept with the clean cab concept that we're now utilizing at Sioux Falls Fire Rescue. We try to keep our gear in the back and out of the cab because there's been research that's shown that cancer-causing carcinogens from fires and fighting fires get stuck on our gear, and we take that in our cab, and it's just healthier for us overall to put it in the back of the cab and keep everything out. So we'll put our gear on before the fire, but after the fire we kind of keep it back here and then get new gear to put on.
Plus, before you put it back in there too, you clean it off at
Yep,
the scene
yep, we
as
clean it
best
at
you
the scene
can,
and
correct?
decon the best we possibly can.
Yeah. Do you do that with the rest of the tools, hoses, kind of
Yep,
do a
we
little?
after every fire, we kind of take it back to the station. We'll clean the hose off. We'll make sure it's good and suitable for the next fire, and we get all our tools deconned and clean and ready to go too. So it's not just at the fire scene. We usually come back to the firehouse and we're busy for quite a few more hours, usually putting the truck back together and getting it serviceable. So on this side, we have, similar to the other side, it's our gear, clean concept again, gear and SCBA breathing bottles. And then here we got our spare cylinders in both sides.
What's in this one here?
In this one, we got just more tools. We got brooms for cleaning up fluid spills or hazmat situations where we got to clean it up and get it off the ground. And then we also have a set of irons with the axe and the Halligan tool.
Yeah.
So we kind of got it stuffed in here, but we got more. And then we have some wildland tools up there for the wildland woodland setting.
And with the spill dry, you go on a lot of car accidents, I bet, because
Yes.
we're on 41st Street and the
Yep.
interstate area, so that's why you keep all this here.
Yep.
What's kind of the nice thing with this vehicle compared to taking the trucks or other utility vehicles out on the interstate or on the roads here?
Yes, so we have a truck here as well. We use this primarily for fluid spills and smaller calls such as EMS because it's more maneuverability. We don't have to worry about getting in those tight areas, especially here on 41st Street and by the mall during busy hours. And also, it's just a little bit more cheaper of a vehicle,
Yep.
and we can use it more conservatively for
Yep.
the city's tax-paying dollars.
You bet. And the other nice thing too, during the inclement weather too, this is different than our regular fire trucks because
Yes. Yep. The four-wheel drive capabilities that are also useful in the wildland setting are also useful here during our winters.
All right. How about in this last cabinet
So our
here?
last cabinet here is EMS, and predominantly we run mostly EMS calls. So we have a whole compartment for EMS, and so here we have a cardiac monitor for doing certain calls. This big bag has a bunch of supplies for trauma incidents or any sick patient we might go on, and then we have just tons more bags for every kind of sick patient we go on.
Because what's your highest number of calls out in this area? What do they
The
typically-
EMS.
EMS calls.
predominantly, yep.
Okay. How about this hose here? That's a lot different than a lot of the other fire trucks have, and
Yep.
why is that?
So we call that a booster reel. This is our cross lay. We call that our fire tack hose. Well, this is our booster reel. We'll usually use that in the summer setting or in the mountainous wildland setting because we can walk. It has pump and roll capabilities, which that means we can walk alongside the truck while it's going at a low rate of speed and spray the grass or the ground around it and put the fire out that way. So it gives us another capability that other fire trucks don't have.
And then how many of these do we have in the city of Sioux Falls right now?
We have two right now in the city of Sioux Falls, one at Station 6 where we are now, and then one at Station 3. And hopefully more in the future.
Once again, thank you for watching Sioux Falls Fire. If you have any questions about our department, you can go to siouxfalls.org/fire.